I agree that there needs to be a lot of localism within a fair and just model. But you also need to have some sort of centralized plan for investment, for example, which has levels of democratic accountability within it as well.
You haven't answered my question. How do you hold people to account?
Hello and welcome to the 5 Masters series, where thought leader, social entrepreneur and fair society advocate Phillip Ullmann is here with an expert guest to discuss ways in which we can create a freer society.
Politics comes before technology, and I think a lot of people have this kind of techno-utopian view, and you see it a lot in kind of cryptocurrency spaces, in libertarian spaces, of we'll fix all of society's problems with this new technology. You know, we've got climate change, so we'll pump CFCs into the atmosphere, and that will stop it. Or, you know, we've got problems with the financial system, so we'll move to cryptocurrency, and then we won't have inequality. And yeah, I think, you know, I don't think we're misaligned on that necessarily, which is the idea that you need to change politics in order for the technologies that we do have available to us to be used in a responsible way and in a way that aligns with, as you say, the interests of people and planet.
Let me just pick up on that cryptocurrency bit, because I'm not talking about cryptocurrency.
Yeah, no, I understand.
Cryptocurrency is the opposite of what I'm talking about, because cryptocurrency is pseudonymous. It creates the opposite of accountability. And it's actually full of criminal behavior, as we all know. So most cryptocurrency, you don't actually have title to the money, because the way it works in law, it hasn't got the protections of money. But if there's fraud anywhere in the blockchain, the money's not yours. And unfortunately, the blockchains are full of fraud. So crypto isn't the answer, but the answer is a transparent ledger with visibility, which is not pseudonymous, which is actually easy to identify. So at the moment, I can't find much that we disagree.
I feel like if it's not pseudonymous, there's going to be some issues there around privacy, which I would have a problem with.
We need to let's unpack that. Explain to me what the issue would be.
Well, I mean, if everyone knew what everyone else was doing, that seems to be quite dystopian.
Yeah, and that, I must admit, that was crossing my mind when you were talking about it. I was like, yeah, it's the privacy thing. It's like, hang on a minute.
Yes, yeah, I say that, but if I'm doing what I should be doing, yeah, this is the bottom line. You can't resolve a problem unless you know where it is. So I have no sensitivity if I'm buying Coca-Cola and chips, whatever. I want to be held to account for it. We've got to think very carefully. This concept of privacy is ingrained within us, but it's actually hiding misbehaviors, because
I don't know, I would be very, very concerned about that. I think, you know, we all have the right to a private life. We have the right to be able to purchase things that we consider to be necessary, even though other people might not consider those things to be necessary. And I don't think that it would be just to have a system in which all of those behaviors were visible to everyone, and then we're able to be policed.
Okay, so I'm allowed to buy products which are destroying the environment, and no one holds me to account. That's what you're saying?
Well, I mean, the reason that that products are marketed to us as, you know, green and clean, for example, is to try and get us to shift our individual behavior in order to solve the climate crisis, as though, you know, changing an individual's spending habits could actually do that. Whereas actually the best way to deal with climate breakdown is to change economic structures. So rather than just saying everyone needs to buy tote bags and stop using plastic straws, it's saying, how do we get around? What are our transport infrastructure like? How do we produce things? What's our energy and utilities infrastructure like? And for me, that requires, and that is definitely where I see a role for the public sector, a level of coordination that is, you know, that takes place on a society-wide level. You know, if you're planning transport infrastructure, investment in utilities, etc. I agree that there needs to be a lot of localism within a fair and just model, but you also need to have some sort of centralized plan for investment, for example, which has levels of democratic accountability within it as well.
You haven't answered my question. How do you hold people to account? If I am only concerned about myself, yeah? So I'm buying goods that are totally destroying the environment. I'm driving journeys that I don't need to drive.
Well, you regulate those things, or you tax them.
How? How are you going to do it? The point is, it needs to be visible, because unless it's visible, what I'm saying to you is people should be held to account themselves. And I should feel responsible as an obligation. I've got to look after the world. I've got to look after my family, my community. And it's my obligation. And therefore, if I'm unless you hold people to account, you're never going to change behaviour.
Well, I mean, I would say that if people are, buying ridiculous cars that are polluting the atmosphere, then we should be regulating those vehicles or taxing them or something.
But how do you do it if you don't know who's buying them?
Well, I mean, because you regulate the sale of them.
Well, it's the same thing. You're saying, look at the transaction and actually say, you're not going to do it. It's the same thing.
Well, no, but it's just not linked to an individual. You're just saying if you're
Well,
selling...
isn't it?
You're thinking of the actual product itself and the sales of that
You're
product.
still saying that you can't sell the product. It's the same thing. But the point is, I'm not sure what concerns you. If we want to hold people to account, and that's the way...
But I don't think we want to hold people to account on an individual level for everything they do. I think there need to be structures of accountability in place for decisions that are being made about the nature of society. And indeed, we are accountable to one another, and on the basis of our interpersonal relationships, we can hold each other to account. But I don't think that we should be moving to a system in which there are formal structures put in place.
I'm not putting formal structures. What I'm saying to you, I'm talking about the same model that you're describing. You're agreeing that you're accountable to your neighbours, to your family, and therefore they need visibility of what you're doing in order...
No, I don't agree that people need to have visibility over every area of each other's lives. I can't see a world in which that would work out particularly well.
Listen, guys, we are out of time, but thank you very much, because it's certainly been a really interesting discussion. So thank you very much for your time. And I'm sure the conversation will continue in the comments as well. And remember that if you are enjoying the 5 Masters series, then please do subscribe, because there's going to be a lot more very informative and interesting discussions to come, and there already have been. Thank you so much once again to Grace and also to Philip, of course, and hopefully we'll see you next time here on the 5 Masters series.